Shortly after 9 o'clock on the morning of April 16, 1947, Texas City, Texas was jarred by a tremendous blast. The French freighter Grand Camp, which was in the harbor and which was loaded with ammonium nitrate, had exploded. The ship had been burning for some time. A large group of sightseers had crowded the area watching the fire, and those who survived describe it as a beautiful sight with deep orange smoke rising into the sky, partially clouding the morning sun. This beautiful sight soon turned to one of horror as the explosion split the air, literally destroying the ship and scattering fragments of what remained over a large area. Flashing pieces of metal, white hot from the blast and the tearing, fell on the adjoining Republic refinery, setting oil tanks afire. This tank farm, which was adjacent to the dock area, contained a large number of tanks, part of which contained crude oil, part gasoline, and a few butane. The fire resulting from the ignition of this farm spread over a large area and destroyed a great deal of property. The nearby plant of the Monsanto Chemical Company echoed with an explosion, and fire swiftly spread through the plant. Although the fire did not spread into the town, the explosion caused severe damage to the residential and business sections of the city. Many homes were completely destroyed. Nearly every place of business felt the effects of the blast. Windows were shattered in Galveston, 12 miles across the bay. Buildings were jarred and windows rattled in Port Arthur, 75 miles away. Texas City was a small town grown big with a war boom. It had become one of the busiest ports on the Texas Gulf Coast. Industries concentrated here were valued at more than $125 million. As the town spread over the coastal plain with a mushroom growth, quickly built houses were put up close to the industrial developments. These houses were in direct line for the blast, and the damage which was done amounted to several $100,000. It was the damage done to the residential section that turned many out homeless and which created a definite problem of rehabilitation. The greatest property damage was not here in the residential section, but in the industrial area. And here we see many warehouses along the dock area, completely leveled and burned to a crisp. Concrete warehouses are shattered. Ships are still burning in the bay. We see the hull that is left of the Monsanto plant with its large distillation towers rising as skeletons above the shattered buildings. The fire raged on. Early the following morning, another ship, the High Flyer, lying at rest in an adjoining slip of water, after having burned for several hours, followed the same course and blew high into the air. If possible, the second explosion was even greater than the first. Very little is left of the High Flyer, and the Wilson B. Keene, which was lying beside it, is almost completely gone itself. The strength or the force of the explosion is almost beyond imagination. Fire rages everywhere. The large barge, now seen high on the bank, was once riding in the slip many yards from the Grand Camp. The force of the explosion, as it carried the water and the barge high on the bank, also draped pieces of the Grand Camp over the barge, showing the steel of the ship, which is more than 6 inches thick, but split completely. And if one looked closely, he saw the remains of a fire truck, which was at the scene and was being used in fighting the original fire, now draped over the barge. The large elevator in the background is still standing, but is condemned as unsafe because it is split from one end to the other. Very little remains of the conveyor that once ran from this elevator to the warehouses, as it is now a mass of tangled steel. The large sea train is bent and twisted and had to be torn down and completely replaced. Fire trucks and automobiles are scattered everywhere, torn by the blast and burned by the fire. With almost the speed of the explosion, rescue workers and relief workers moved in to help the citizens of this little city. The only road into the area was completely blocked. Large equipment, such as bulldozers, cranes, and so forth, was needed to quickly clear a road so that these rescue workers could move in and remove the wounded and the dead. Among the first to arrive were the police agencies, members of the Texas Department of Public Safety, members of the police departments of Houston, Galveston, Port Arthur, Beaumont, and many surrounding towns early in the explosion sent help to the stricken city. Many others followed close after: San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, all without hesitation sending assistance to Texas City. These were in the area long before the second explosion, and many lives would probably have been lost in the second explosion had it not been for the efficient blockade and the excellent policing of the area. This, of course, was not without danger to themselves. Several of the officers were injured, and much damage was suffered to police equipment, which had gone into the area. Some of this is seen in the damage to the department cars. Excellent cooperation existed among all of the police agencies represented. The overall command was one of cooperation and a willingness to work together. In a situation of this type, communications is vital. For this reason, the Texas Department of Public Safety sent into the Texas City area their portable radio station, KTXB, which is mounted in a large panel truck. This truck was set up across the street from the City Hall in Texas City. From it, the officers in charge were able to direct activities for the policing of the area and for carrying out the relief and rescue work.